1975, we were all glued and frightened to our cinema seats. Were you? Yeah, of course you were. You must have been. Yes, absolutely. You remember this. There's no to. Don't pretend you don't remember these things. I love it in the comments. Oh, I wasn't born then. Oh, I was a small child. I believe you. Of course, yes. We're talking, of course, in 1975, the mega movie that literally took the box office by storm was none other than this. That's right, Jaws. Who remembers going to see Jaws? And were you truly frightened? I'd love to know in the comments below. But it was recently, I was going, as I often say here, through some interviews via some other people, that I'm not actually allowed to screen because I don't know who owns the copyright of certain things of this now. But I was lucky enough to meet a man who truly was, some people regard, a Hollywood legend. We're talking the man that really defined cinema box office in the late 1950s, Ben-Hur himself, Charlton Heston. Now, to a lot of people, Charlton Heston, really, particularly my generation, came to the fore all thanks to starring in the Aaron Spelling soap, The Colbys. That's right, The Colbys was a mega smash. And, I think really it was a soap overload at that point. Charlton told me, though, that he only agreed to star in the soap because Barbara Stanwyck had agreed to star in it as well. What he didn't know, though, was this, that neither one had agreed to star at all, but the very canny producer, Aaron Spelling, played one and the other off. So both believing they were going to be in it, all the while, actually, nobody had agreed to anything. Hollywood, eh? But you see, Charlton could have had a totally different career. As we know, we knew him for the Sword and Sandal movies that made a mega splash for him. And then in the late 1960s, really came back with The Planet of the Apes. Do you remember that? How terrifying and clever was that, though? Roddy McDowall, remember that? Lucky enough to meet him once as well. Share those stories with you one day. But what was interesting, listening back to these particular tapes, was I didn't realise that Charlton could have been part of the mega smash 1975 movie, Jaws. That's right. Even though they'd virtually cast a lot of the roles, the producer, Steven Spielberg, was looking around. And they liked the idea of Charlton Heston. As you can imagine, huge box office, let's be honest. Why wouldn't you? But then a lot of the backers felt that he was too big a name to be just none other than Charlton Heston. He had a mind for a particular role, that of the police chief. And they felt, well, people would just be watching Charlton rather than, of course, focusing on the drama that truly was Jaws. I asked him whether he was kind of angry about the fact that he didn't get a part in the movie. And he said, well, yes and no, because obviously it became a cult thing, but he'd already sort of enjoyed that flavour thanks to the Planet of the Apes. But what he did say was, like so many of us, when he went to see the film, he literally was gripped to his seat because it was so beautifully shot, so well filmed, and he said a really good dialogue for the era too. Now, I was lucky enough, as I say, to meet Charlton Heston on a number of occasions. Very first time, in fact, was outside the Queen's Theatre stage door in London, where he was with his lovely wife at the time, and they were appearing in the Caine Mutiny court martial. And he literally couldn't believe at that point, remember, a few years back now, that someone so young would know so much about his career. Charlton Heston truly was a fabulous film star to interview. And as I often say here on the show, isn't it nice to remember those that have entertained us and continue to entertain us even to this day? Now back to Jaws. How frightened were you? Let me know in the comments below. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.